Hello world, Patricia O'Connor here, and let me see, boom, wow, Frida Reba Darcy, yeah, it's not all Ray-Bans and sunshine. Um, Tonight on the Bonsai Balcony, it's more of a bonsai living room, and I thought we would talk about wire. Uh, we have been doing our share of bending since the fall. I have, on more than one occasion, like 2 occasions, ordered out for pine trees just so I could twist them like party balloons into circus animal shapes. And it was a lot of fun, but I thought I would share. I wasn't always, while I was doing that, I wasn't always doing demos for wiring. And I thought it would be, this is also Honest Engine, this is Scout's Honor, this is going to be a short. So in the last couple of weeks or months, like since fall, I will say that, we've done some pretty good, it's not just bending trees, I'm folding these little guys. I'm twisting these little guys right on up. And what do I expect to get from this? One, I expect for this to be a show hen. So, if I had an adequate cascade pot, it would already be in it. Instead, what we're going to go ahead and do is let it make a lot of big roots. Let it escape some roots. And what do I expect to get from that? 2 things. One, the expanded root mass will give us more things to play with later, right? If I have this filled up with roots and I have roots down into here, at some point the roots halfway up might be something that I can take the soil out or design or tease or shift the angle of the tree drastically one way or another, or expose those as an exposed root feature, or spread those out for a root on rock, blah blah blah. There's all kind of reasons why you want roots, especially on especially on the pines and stuff. So that's just not a bad idea to have this guy going this way. But also, what else those roots will do for me was they will help the tree to grow. And with this many twists and curls and folds, what I would expect this tree to do is to get fat. People will warn you about your tree getting disproportionately fat if you put this many twists and folds on them. This is kind of what I'm going for, though. I want to see those little circles and bends just kind of swell right up like a really, really fat snake, or an inner tube that's overinflated to where it just closes right, it just looks overswollen. That's kind of what I'm hoping to see out of this. Also, which makes it really rewarding, because I'm trying to grow small trees here anyway. I can do that in 4 or 5 years. The tree will not be making bark for 10 or until it's 10 years old. So while that's not the most fun to wait on, we can have a really, really cool mame in 4 years. We can do that. And putting this many bends and this much shape in it is a great way to go about that. Other examples of people going back to that, this was the first thing I started putting a lot of motion to. And as you can see, I twisted this little guy up like a pretzel. And you can see an example of where it has gone from this fat last year to this fat this year, right? So that's what you get for all of those really tight folds and bends. And this is, again, a little quick look at our root work we're doing. And this is going to be on that guy. This is going to be our sacrifice branch. Now, one of the people that I listen to quite a bit, also tomorrow night, Eric at Bonsai will be a key instructor, demo person at our Wednesday night bonsai club for the Oakland Bonsai chapter, East Bay Bonsai. So this is the tree that I got at the Pacific Bonsai Expo, and I got it from Eric's booth. But I've also got one other of his trees, I think. At least one other. Yeah, one other. I got one other of his trees. And this guy had a sacrifice branch on it that was going out to about there. And I clipped it. And we're going to encourage this little guy and this stuff. And as you can see, his little candle is coming up there. It's getting ready to go. But that's what the pros did. This guy, as you can see, it comes out of the ground. Comes out of the ground moving. I mean, it just comes out of the ground and starts moving right away. So at some point, I'm going to want to make sure. Also, this is a good example. I think you can see how the tree fattens out where its bends are, and then it kind of evens out a little. Got a little bit of a wire gouge there, and then it evens out as we got away from those heavy bends in the tree. I like that fat stuff. I really like that. And I don't care if it swells up really big in the part where it's bending and then gets a little smaller again. I don't really look at that as inverse taper when the tree is folded up like that. I see that as like, I just see that as what it is. It's just it denotes a backing up of all of the stuff. It's kind of like grabbing a water hose by the end and seeing it swell up. But it will be fun to continue to bend and fold this tree some this summer, spring and summer, and it's pliable enough to where we can still be doing that. But right now, what I thought I would do is not do something that's a lot of pressure, feeling like I've got to get a branch just exactly the way I want to while I've got it on camera, while at the same time trying not to hurt the tree, while at the same time trying to show you what I'm doing. I thought I would just go about this way. What this is not a bad day at bonsai. These are branches that we have clipped off of trees that we worked on. And dedicated bonsai person that I am, I went digging in the garbage just for you, so that I would have something to bend and fold on without, and to be able to demo without disrespecting living material. It's hard. It's difficult. It's difficult to kill the non-living. So that makes this stuff priceless as far as teaching aids. And I can just pass along some of this stuff that some of the wisers have passed along to me. So you can see somebody here did their work. This guy comes off into two. Those guys come off into two. We've got a little insurance branch there that could have been two. And then those were branching off into two. So that's all going, everything there is going pretty much the way you would want it to do. And part of what they did to get these branches this way in this shape, on a tree like that, is they used wire. And when it comes to using bonsai wire, they haven't always used bonsai wire. I think they started wiring trees after they started using electricity. I don't really know when after they started using electricity. Prior to the use of electricity, I don't think anybody was making wire or had a reason to have wire. They made springs, so there would have been wire before then. But yeah, I don't really know of any pre-electrical use of wire on trees prior to that. Normally, there are two types of wire. There's aluminum and there's copper. And I've heard it said that copper is for show. Never use aluminum. But on the other hand, just having gotten ready for shows this past summer, I wasn't getting ready for shows, but I was attending our bonsai meetings when we were rolling up into showtime. And one of the things that they had discussed was how to get ready for a show and how to prepare your tree for a show, how to do the moths, how to make sure you don't come with any bugs or anything, a little hygiene stuff that you should know before you dragging your tree off in public. And one thing they said was get all the wire off. Like it was, I'd never heard that, but it's against the rule. Somewhere in Bond, not against the rules. We know that there are no rule, but it's in etiquette. So they didn't accept the idea of bringing a tree to a bonsai show that had wire. And when somebody actually brought that up, the rebuttal came back was that it's okay if it's your first year. So at the expo I went to, that was, I would say, mostly true. Mostly true. I did see trees that had wire. I didn't see a lot, but I did see some. I also might be amazed, but I would be surprised if the trees that I did see that had wire on them were being done by first year people. They still look like they were done by experienced hands. So I'm not really sure how all of that totally plays out. Whether or not copper is for show or copper is not for show, and aluminum, and none of them are really, I haven't quite sorted that part out yet. But what I do know is that as a general rule, aluminum is lighter, cheaper, and easier. So if you have a situation where you are going to put wire on a branch and the branch is going to swell up really fast and start digging in, then it may not be on the tree long enough for you to go and spend the money on the copper. You may put that off until it's going to at least stay on there longer. Now, having said that, copper is harder to bend, and you can get away with using, I believe I heard, a third of wire, copper to aluminum. You'd have to use 2/3 of more aluminum to achieve the same bends. Now, when it comes to bends on a tree, the two branch method, for those of you who have never seen Heron's bonsai, they're always talking about a two branch method. In this case, I could have started here or here, wired down, and then brought it up here. That would be the two branch method. The beauty in doing that is when you bend the branch, sometimes the wire will twist. And if it is wired around another branch, it will not be able to do that. So if you try to bend and twist a branch and you've just wired it around itself, then you might be able to get it to go from here to here. But when you try to put a spiral in it, the wire will spin, and you will not be able to get the branch to hold whatever it is you want it to do without some sort of anchor point. On this one, I just grabbed the wire here at the base, and if you like, let's say this branch right here wasn't there, and I wanted to wire this being my stem. So I gave this stem 2 wraps, and now I'm coming in to here. Now I'd like to show you this part. I'm going to back that out. Now, coming around to here, and I'm going to come up over the top and then bring it down. Why did I do that? The reason I did that was because had I brought the wire down into the bottom, down here into the crotch of the branch, then when it came time to bend the branch, I would have been bending it over that wire. Say at this point, instead of coming down here at the bottom, I came over the top. And the reason is had I had the wire right there in the crotch of the branch, then when it came time to bend this branch down, a fulcrum would have appeared right here, and it would have snapped the branch right here. So that's what would have happened had I ran under the bottom, and that's why in that instance I ran over the top. Ran over the top of the branch right there at the top of the shoulder, so that whenever it comes time, you know, you run the wire over the top of the shoulder instead of under the bottom of the shoulder. That way, when it comes time to bend it down, you see how I'm trying to drive the bottle into my rib cage. But if I were to attach a guy wire from here and try to pull that in, I would tear out the shoulder. Just like if I pushed my elbow in, I would tear out my own shoulder. So that's why you go over the top of the shoulder in order to get that, to give yourself the mobility to bring your branch down. What we want to do is we want to be able to use a wire as support and as reinforcement. And what we do not want to do is let that reinforcement work against us some way that causes it to be a fulcrum. You know, like I'm using fulcrums to bend. I used this as a fulcrum to wrap this tree around that chopstick, and in that way I was able to get all those really tight bends and folds in that tree. But you do not want your wire to be a fulcrum. You want it to be a support. There we go. Good as new? Almost. We are annealing this wire as we bend it. So to that extent, that is something that we should be concerned about. So that was that, and that was just that one little trick on how not to do that. Otherwise, the 2-branch method is just basically to start it here in the center and then give one of these guys. And when it comes down to it, when you start messing with little trees and stuff, break out the tweezers. I mean, the needle nose pliers. Those will make it a lot easier to use. And just take your time. You watch the old guys in that do this, and they'll do this with tiny little junipers, and they'll start off with parts of the tree that are where I would normally stop, and then they will wire that thing out, those tiny little branches, all the way out to the end. But if you watch, they're supporting every bend, and they're doing it just kind of methodically with their needle nose pliers. And I'm noticing a lot of them use chrome needle nose pliers. I don't know whether or not they find, maybe the brand of needle nose that they like is, you know, you're gonna want the tools to be pretty hard. Typically, you don't always see the most quality when it comes to chrome tools. I think of that more like in America. I think of that as more lug wrenches. Anywho, those are good tight bends. I did that with the needle nose pliers instead of my fingers, and I was able to get those circles a lot, spiral those guys out a lot tighter than on this one, where I was just kind of flipping it around with my hand. Let's bring this guy. Also, thin out your needles before. Don't wire needles down, even though y'all seen me do that a bunch. I shouldn't be doing that. I feel the pressure to keep moving, but I probably should take longer on these videos. And whenever I'm telling you what I'm going to be doing, that would be a good time to probably be cleaning out the branches for anything that's underneath. Thin out the needles some. There's probably, all kinds of good times to do that. But before you're about to go, putting a lot of wire on branches, you're definitely going to want a lot of anything you can get cleaned out of the way, and anything moved out of the way or cleaned up or giving yourself room to move, it's just going to be beneficial to you later on. So, ta-da. And that's how we would have wired that had we still been using that. There is one other thing that I want to show you before we call this enough. Where you at? Okay. It'll be right here. Don't worry, I'm going to reuse all this wire. Yeah. Okay, so when we are cut off down to something that'll make this an easier demonstration for me. That will. She's nothing if not graceful. Okay, this will be the little part for my demonstration now. We're about to start demonstrating for real. One last. Okay. So, let's say we know that we're about to put a hellacious bend in this. We're going to go to town on this son of a gun like nobody's business. Let's say we've already looked at it and we kind of know in our mind where it is. We want this guy to fold or bend. We want to make dang sure, we want to make really good and sure that we have wire on the back side of where we're going to put the most bend in this. In other words, you need to be thinking about it before you're going. One, if you know that you're going to be bending the branch this way, you're going to be twisting it this way, bending it this way, then that tells you you're going to be wiring it that way. If you're going to be going the other way with it, then you need to wire the other way. So before you start wiring, when it comes time to lay that wire down on the trunk or along the branch or along your two branches that you're going to use for your two, you need to think about what it is that's going to happen with that wire. Where are you going to take the limb? This way or that way? Is it going to do that or is it going to do this? And then because what you don't want to do is you don't want to run a wire on something and then bend the branch the opposite way, because that uncoils your wire. The support that you just created, you've lost, and now the wire that you're trying to get to work for you is working against you, and it's now loose and away from the branch. It doesn't look right. It doesn't look like it's supportive, and it's not supportive. And if you try to put a really hard bend in that, you could break it. So, what I was just getting at there is we're looking at where we're looking at where these guys are. So if I were in here and I were trying, so what I'm going to do on this bending of this wire, you see I just grabbed it with my pliers. And I've got a pretty fierce hold on it, except that I'm not grabbing it by the trunk there. I'm grabbing it on, I've got a piece of aluminum wire in the jaws on both sides. So, also, there's two other things that you can do to keep your pliers from damaging the bark of your tree. One, do what I just did and try to grab the wire, not the trunk. Two, you can wrap rubber tape around the tips of your pliers for cushioning. Three, they do make soft tip channel locks, pliers, and needle nose and radio pliers. I've seen them in the hardware store, and a set of 3, as far as I know, would cost me about $60. I don't think I'm going to do it, but I've thought about it. So if you see where that bend is, hopefully you see that I've got a wire right there supporting the axis right there where I'm trying to do all of this hellaciously painful stuff. And that is how we would get away with doing something like that. Except let's see. Let's see if we actually get away with doing something like that. It's not like we're going to kill it. Where are you at? Where are you at? Where are you at? Where are you at? Okay. Okay, I give up. Didn't give up long, but I gave up. So what I want to do is try to just take this and put that hellacious bend right there. I didn't have enough wire on it to get away with that. But had we, yeah, we do. Maybe we do. I'm being irreverent with it because I know it's not a living branch. But I was just trying to demonstrate how we bought ourselves insurance against blowout by having the wire there. And when we moved our bend to there, we started with the tear. Okay? Now, conifers. Let's say we got our bend to there. And we did that. I think I'm showing you. I can't see around my own head, but I think I'm showing you. We got there. Can you see the tear? There it is. It's right in there. So do not bend that back and close the tear. One, you have wrecked part of the tissue, and there could be some dieback. Possibly not. What you should do is put whatever you use for cut paste on that so that it doesn't dry out. You should seal that wound. But there are professionals who do bends where they'll see a tear like that all the time. And when they want to put a heavy, they don't do that unnecessarily, but when they want to put a heavy bend in something, they will let that tear dictate how far they can go. They'll go until they see that, and then they'll put some cut paste on it, wire it off to where it stays right there, and say that was the most we could do with that. So it's not the end of the world. It's like I said, it's something that some professionals do until they see that, and that's the point at which they stop. Wiring the direction of the branch that you're going to bend. You know you're going to bend it in that direction. That's the same direction you're going to wire it. If you cannot use the 2-branch system, use the trunk or a bigger branch that the limb is attached to as your second. Always bring your wire over the top of the shoulder, not under the bottom, so that you don't use that wire as a fulcrum to blow out the shoulder. It's easier if you have room. If you see wire digging in, but you haven't had it on there long enough for it to set yet, then put your new wire on it if you have room, because you're not going to want to put your new wire in the same tracks as the old ones because they're already digging in. So put your new wire on it. That way the new wire will be in your old position, will still be in place. And then, if possible to do this, then remove the first wire that was digging in. Sometimes they're too difficult to remove if you've already put another wire on them, but I have seen instances where I could do that, and it made it a lot easier to retain that shape that we're trying to keep if we apply the second wire with the tree still in shape, still holding the first wire. I have also seen instances where I didn't do that and wished I had. I was going, well, the tree kind of straightened itself out, and now we're trying to tuck it, pull it back in, and it didn't go back in as well the second time. So that's something to think about. Pine trees will fatten up with wire, and if you let them dig in a little, sometimes you can remove that wire and it'll even back out, or they'll fatten up between the coils. And when you remove that wire, the part where it got fat won't exactly shrink, but the part where it was shrunk will fatten back up quickly to compensate. So you can kind of, like putting your finger over the hose and seeing the hose swell up. You can kind of get some extra girth out of your tree that way. Otherwise, there's a lot of people out there who go with wiring, and there's a lot of people who say no wire, just clip and grow. I see the beauty in all of that. There's some maples out there that are just absolutely stunning, and some oaks out there that are absolutely stunning and have never been wired. But I think when it comes to the pines, it would be a little harder to get the results that most people are used to seeing, I think, without wire. Maybe not. Maybe it's just a reflection of what I need to do. But I also think that in this stage in my game, learning whether I want to wire or not to wire, I think first if I learn to wire, then I would better know when not to. And I found that to be the case. Also, I don't want to not do something because it intimidates me. So that's what has been going on there. It occurred to me also, I've been doing these videos now for going on 3 years, and y'all seen me do some wiring, and I'm getting a little bolder. I'm wiring smaller and smaller pieces, and I think I'm coming around a corner. The stuff is not as fragile as a lot of times what you think. However, the needles are. You need to learn how to manage those without them poking them. If they're hurting you, you're also hurting them, is a good way to think of that, I think. So, yeah, that's about all I got. I just thought I would share a couple of quick little wiring tips. Copper is considered to be showier than aluminum when it comes to conifers. I think a lot of times people want to use copper when it comes to conifers. I think the exception to that is seedlings and other things that are going to grow really, really, really quick, so you know that it's not going to be on there very long. Also things that are really small, but then you just go with a smaller gauge of copper, because remember, a third of the copper to aluminum can do the same job. So also those colors tend to match on conifers better when it gets that bronzy color. However, you can anodize aluminum to any color. So yeah, I think that's about all I had in my notes. We are going to do quite a bit more wiring this next summer on our pine trees, and yeah. Like and subscribe if you guys have not already. I will be doing some more posts this weekend. It's a short weekend for me. I've given up one of my days for so somebody could pick up their mom. That's the way it goes. Glad I could help. And but we'll probably still do almost the same amount of drops this weekend. So yeah, I guess I'll see you guys on Saturday. Saturday.